You're sitting in the dark. It's 1.8 million years ago. You're cold, you're tired, and you're holding a piece of raw zebra leg that you have been chewing on for what feels like your entire life. Because it basically is. There's no fire. There's no pan. There's no salt. There's no letting it rest for 10 minutes. There's no guy on the internet telling you to sear it on high heat first. There's just you, your aching jaw, and a piece of meat so tough it's actively fighting back. And there's nothing else to do. No phone to look at. No podcast to put on. No way to distract yourself from the fact that dinner is basically a workout. You just sit there, chewing, and chewing, and chewing some more. This is every meal, every day, for your entire life. You were born chewing. You will die chewing. Your children will chew. Their children will chew. For hundreds of thousands of years, this is just what eating is. And then somewhere sometime one of your ancestors drops a piece of that meat into a fire. Maybe by accident, maybe out of pure boredom, maybe just to see what happens. And when they pull it back out and take a bite, something happens inside their skull that will, no exaggeration, change the destiny of an entire species. This is the story of the single most important meal in human history. Not a feast. Not a banquet. The first time a human being ate something cooked. And here's the part that should genuinely stop you in your tracks. That one habit, putting food near fire, might be the actual reason you have the brain you're using to watch this video right now. Not a metaphor. Not a stretch. Literally, physically, the reason your skull is the shape it is and the size it is. I'm serious. Cooking didn't just change dinner. Cooking may have built you. Let's get into it. Okay, first we need to kill an idea, because almost everyone gets this wrong. The story you've probably been told goes something like this. Humans evolved, got smart, became the brilliant big-brain geniuses we are today. And then, as a nice bonus, we figured out cooking. Brain first, kitchen second. Smart ape invents barbecue. Civilization follows. Roll credits. That is almost certainly backwards. The reframe you need is this. We didn't get smart and then start cooking. We may have started cooking and that's how we got smart. The fire came first. The brain followed. Cooking might not be something humans invented. It might be the thing that invented humans. And I know that sounds like a wild overstatement, the kind of dramatic line you put in a video title to get someone to click. But this is not a fringe idea. This is a serious, heavily debated, deeply researched hypothesis championed by one of the most respected primatologists alive. His name is Richard Wrangham. He's a biological anthropologist at Harvard. And in 2009, he laid the whole thing out in a book with the greatest possible title. Catching Fire. How Cooking Made Us Human. Wrangham spent decades studying great apes in the wild. He watched chimpanzees eat. He watched what they ate, how long it took, how much energy they spent doing it. And somewhere in all that observation, a question started nagging at him that nobody had seriously asked before. If chimps and humans share almost 99% of our DNA, why do we look so radically different? Why do we have these enormous heads and tiny faces and small teeth and short guts when our closest cousins are basically the opposite? What happened to us? His answer, fire happened. Cooking happened. And the implications of that answer go further than almost anyone expected. Wrangham's argument is simple to state and genuinely radical in its implications. He says the control of fire and the cooking of food was the defining event of human evolution. More important than tools, more important than language. The thing that took a small, vulnerable, ground-dwelling ape and put it on the path to building cities and spaceships and eventually a microwave that beeps at you until you open the door. To understand why, we have to talk about the most embarrassing, expensive, high-maintenance organ in your entire body. Your brain. Here's a fact that should make you feel slightly bad about yourself in the best possible way. Your brain makes up about 2% of your body weight. 2%. It's a small, wrinkled, vaguely disappointing-looking lump, and it eats roughly 20% of all the energy you burn. Sit with that. 1/50th of your body is quietly consuming 1/5 of your entire fuel supply, every single day, doing nothing visible, just humming away in the dark, running you, Your brain is the coworker who does 20% of the eating at the pizza party and 0% of the visible work. And somehow nobody can fire him because he's secretly running the entire company. Now here's the problem evolution ran into. Big brains are incredibly useful. More brain means more planning, more memory, more social games, more survival. So why didn't every animal just evolve a giant brain? Because a giant brain is a giant energy bill, and most animals simply cannot afford it. You can't grow an organ that demands a fifth of your calories unless you have a reliable, rich, easy source of those calories. In 1995, two scientists, Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler, proposed something they called the expensive tissue hypothesis. Their insight was this: the body has a budget. If you want to spend big on one expensive organ, you have to cut spending somewhere else. And when they looked at the human body, they found exactly where we made the cut: our guts. Compared to other primates our size, humans have a dramatically smaller digestive system. A gorilla has this enormous barrel-shaped torso, and most of that is gut, an absolutely massive fermentation tank required to slowly, painfully extract energy from raw leaves and stems. Our intestines, by comparison, are tiny. We traded gut for brain. We shrank the factory and expanded the head office. But that trade only works if something else is doing the digestion for us before the food even reaches our mouths. Something is pre-processing the food, breaking it down, unlocking the energy in advance, so our small modern guts don't have to do the heavy lifting. That something is fire. That something is cooking. Here's where it gets genuinely jaw-dropping. When you cook food, you are essentially doing part of digestion outside the body. Heat unravels proteins so your stomach can get at them. Heat bursts the starch granules in roots and grains, a process called gelatinization, which turns hard indigestible carbs into soft available fuel. Cooking even kills off some of the bacteria that would otherwise cost you energy to fight. A researcher named Rachel Carmody, also at Harvard, ran experiments feeding animals cooked versus raw versions of the same food, same calories on paper. The animals eating cooked food gained more weight and retained more energy. The numbers on the package were the same. The energy your body could actually extract was not. Cooking is, in a very literal sense, a calorie cheat code. Same food, more fuel, for free. So picture the chain reaction. Cooking unlocks more energy. More available energy means you can afford a smaller gut. A smaller gut frees up the metabolic budget. That freed up budget can be spent on a bigger, hungrier, more powerful brain. And a bigger brain figures out better ways to cook, hunt, and find food, which unlocks even more energy. That is not a small tweak. That is an evolutionary engine. A loop that feeds itself, generation after generation, slowly transforming a clever ape into something that has never existed before on this planet. Let me throw something at you that sounds almost funny until you really think about it. A chimpanzee, our close cousin, spends around 6 hours a day chewing. 6 hours. That's not eating, that's chewing. The actual mechanical labor of grinding down raw, fibrous, brutally tough plant matter into something that can be swallowed. Imagine spending 6 hours of every single day, more than a full workday, just moving your jaw up and down. No breaks. No scrolling through your phone in between bites. Just chewing, continuously, as a lifestyle. And this isn't because chimps are somehow slow or inefficient. It's because raw food is genuinely that hard to process. Your jaw is a muscle, your teeth are tools, and on a raw diet they are basically working a double shift, every single day, with no days off, for your entire life. Now look at your own face. Compared to other apes, humans have absurdly small teeth, weak little jaws, and a delicate face. By the brutal standards of the animal kingdom, you have the bite of a soft, pampered creature who has never had to fight for a meal, because in evolutionary terms, you haven't. Cooking did the chewing for you. Soft cooked food doesn't require massive grinding molars and a powerful jaw, so over hundreds of thousands of years, evolution stopped paying for them. Our faces literally got smaller because our food got softer, and the time. Oh, the time. If cooking cut your food processing from 6 hours down to 1, you've just been handed back 5 hours of every single day. 5 hours that are no longer spent grimly chewing. 5 hours you can now spend making tools, telling stories, raising children, planning, scheming, building the foundations of culture itself. The entire history of human art, religion, science, and philosophy might be downstream of the simple fact that cooking gave us free time. There's a fascinating piece of modern evidence here, and it's a little brutal. In Germany, researchers ran something called the Gießen Raw Food Study, where they looked at people committed to eating only raw food in the modern world, with all our high-tech blenders and our carefully cultivated, calorie-dense modern fruits and vegetables. Conditions our ancestors could only have dreamed of. And the finding was striking. Many participants lost significant weight, and a large portion of the women on the strictest raw diets stopped menstruating entirely. Their bodies, despite unlimited access to food, simply could not pull in enough energy to maintain normal reproductive function on raw food alone. Let that land. Even with modern abundance, a strict raw diet pushes the human body toward an energy deficit. We are not biologically raw animals anymore. We are cooking animals. We have outsourced part of our survival to fire so completely that we can no longer easily live without it. Somewhere along the line, cooking stopped being a lifestyle choice and became a biological requirement. We are addicted to fire, and we have been for a very, very long time. How long? That's where the detective story really begins. So when did it actually happen? When did a human first cook a meal? And here we hit the same wall that every question about deep prehistory hits. Fire doesn't fossilize. A campfire from 1,000,000 years ago doesn't sit politely in the ground waiting for an archaeologist. Ash blows away. Charcoal washes out. Burnt bone crumbles. So the honest answer is, we are reading faint, scattered clues across an almost unimaginable stretch of time, and scientists argue about them constantly. But the clues we do have are extraordinary. The oldest widely discussed evidence of controlled fire comes from a place called Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, dating back roughly 1,000,000 years. Deep inside that cave, researchers found burnt bone and ash from plants, and crucially, the chemistry showed it had been burned at the kind of temperatures you get from a controlled fire. Not a wildfire that swept through. A fire, deep inside a cave, that someone was tending deliberately. And 1,000,000 years ago, the someone tending it wasn't us. It was Homo erectus, our older, heavier-browed ancestor, sitting in the dark, keeping a flame alive. But here is the discovery that genuinely rewired this whole field. At a site in Israel called Gesher Benat Yaakov, on the banks of an ancient lake, researchers found a settlement dating back around 780,000 years. And in 2022, a team published a stunning analysis. They looked at the teeth of fish found at the site and found that those teeth had been heated to a specific, controlled, moderate temperature. Not burned, not charred, cooked. The exact temperature you'd want to gently cook a fish without destroying it. Think about what that means. Nearly 800,000 years ago, somebody on the shore of a lake was cooking fish at the right temperature. Not too hot, not too cold. Just right. That's not survival panic. That's not throwing meat in a fire and hoping. That looks like technique. That looks like someone who has done this before and knows exactly what they're doing. That looks, if you let yourself say it, like a cook. And then it gets even more interesting, because here's the question sitting in the back of your mind, the same one that haunts every prehistory mystery. Does the lack of older evidence mean cooking didn't happen earlier? Or does it just mean we haven't found it yet? Because again, fire does not fossilize. This is the heart of Wrangham's most controversial claim. He looks at the human body itself and argues that the evidence isn't really in the ground, it's in us. He points out that Homo erectus, appearing nearly 2,000,000 years ago, already had the smaller teeth, the smaller gut, the larger brain, the body shape of an animal that had stopped climbing trees to sleep and started sleeping on the ground. And what lets a soft, slow, ground-sleeping ape survive a night on the African savanna, surrounded by lions and hyenas that own the darkness? Fire. A fire keeps you warm. A fire keeps the predators back. And if you have fire every single night for warmth and protection, you would have to be remarkably incurious to never once put food in it. So Wrangham argues cooking could go back as far as 1.5 to 1.8 million years, right to the origin of Homo erectus itself. The bones of our own faces, he says, are the receipt. We just can't find the original kitchen because it burned down, literally, 1.5 million years ago. By the time you get to more recent humans, the evidence becomes overwhelming. At Qesem Cave, also in Israel, there are hearths used over and over again, around 300,000 years ago, a fixed spot that generations return to, the prehistoric equivalent of the kitchen. At Border Cave in South Africa, researchers found the cooked remains of starchy underground plants, roots and tubers, deliberately roasted around 170,000 years ago, the world's oldest confirmed barbecued potato situation. And here's a detail that should permanently delete the dumb caveman stereotype from your brain. The Neanderthals cooked too. Analysis of the hardened plaque on Neanderthal teeth has revealed traces of cooked plants and grains. There's evidence they used plants with little nutritional value but strong flavor, which is just a clinical, scientific way of saying Neanderthals were using herbs. They cared what it tasted like. That's not survival. That's cuisine. Now, let's be fair, because this is where a good story has to slow down and be honest. Not everyone agrees with Wrangham, and the disagreement is important. The strongest objection goes like this. If cooking is so ancient, where is the abundant, undeniable evidence of controlled fire from 2 million years ago? We have a few intriguing, debated sites. We don't have a clear, unbroken trail of hearths stretching back that far. Many archaeologists argue that while early humans may have used fire opportunistically, grabbing flames from a lightning strike or a wildfire, the routine, reliable, make-it-yourself control of fire only became widespread a few 100,000 years ago. Not nearly 2 million. This is a real, live, unresolved scientific debate, and you should be suspicious of anyone, including me, who tells you it's settled. The truth is probably somewhere in the layered middle. What almost nobody disputes is the destination. Whenever exactly it locked in, cooking did reshape the human body and the human brain. The argument is about the timing, not about whether the revolution happened. And here's the part of this story that I think is the most beautiful, and it almost never gets mentioned. Cooking didn't just change the food. It changed when, where, and how we gathered. Think about raw eating. A chimp eats where it finds food. When it finds it, mostly alone, immediately. There is no reason to wait. There is no reason to wait. There is no reason to gather. But cooking changes the entire physics of a meal. Cooking requires a place, the fire. It requires time. You have to wait for it to cook. And it produces a concentrated pile of warm, valuable food in a single spot, at a single moment. For the first time in the history of life on Earth, there's a reason to bring the food back. A reason to wait together. A reason to sit in a circle in the dark around a shared source of warmth and light and eat together. The hearth becomes the first gathering place, the first appointed time. The original kitchen table 100,000 years before there were kitchens or tables. And around that fire, while you wait for the food and while you eat it, you have something our ancestors had never really had before. Long stretches of safe, warm, face-to-face time with nothing urgent to do. What do you do with that time? You talk. You tell stories. You plan tomorrow's hunt. You settle arguments. You teach the children. You fall in love. You gossip, you laugh, you grieve, you bond in ways that go deeper than anything that came before. The fire didn't just cook the food. It created the conditions for human culture itself. Language, storytelling, cooperation, family, religion, art. All of it incubated in the firelight, in the long warm hours that cooking made possible. So, when did humans start cooking food? The honest answer is we don't have a single date, and we probably never will, because the evidence mostly burned away hundreds of thousands of years ago. What we can say is that the hard, undeniable evidence goes back at least 780,000 years. The use of controlled fire reaches back perhaps 1 million. And the boldest case, written in the shape of our own bones, suggests the relationship may stretch back nearly 2 million years, all the way to the first Homo erectus crouching over a flame on the African savanna. But the exact date was never really the point. The point is what cooking did. It pulled energy out of food and poured it into our skulls. It shrank our guts and freed up 5 hours of every day. It gathered us into circles around the fire and gave us the time and the safety to become storytellers, teachers, families, a civilization. There is no human culture anywhere in all of recorded history that does not cook. None. It is one of the only truly universal human behaviors. more universal than language, more universal than religion. We are, every single one of us, descended from an unbroken chain of cooks stretching back into the deep dark of prehistory. So tonight, when you stand in your kitchen in the glow of the stove, waiting for something to turn golden brown, feel the full weight of what you're actually doing. You are not just making dinner. You are performing the single oldest, most transformative ritual our species has ever had. The same act, in its essence, that a Homo erectus performed in a South African cave 1,000,000 years ago. The same act that gave you the brain you're using right now to understand these words. The smell of food cooking. That smell that pulls every human being on Earth toward it without a single word of instruction, is older than language, older than our species, possibly older than fire being something we could even reliably make on our own. When you cook for someone you love, you are doing what humans have always done. You are saying in the most ancient language there is, come closer, sit by the fire, wait with me. You are safe here. There is enough. Let's eat together. 1.5 million years of human history, and what connects you directly, without a single break in the chain, to that very first ancestor staring at meat in the flames, is the simple fact that you'll make something warm to eat tonight. That's not a small thing. That might be the whole thing. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to know. If you could go back and taste that very first cooked meal at the dawn of humanity, would you? Let me know down in the comments. And if your brain, the expensive one, the one cooking built, enjoyed this, you know what to do. I'll see you around the fire.